My name is JP Soars, and I'm a musician. I've got a brand new record out called Brick by Brick, and you are here listening to Talking Blues.
What does JP stand for?
John Paul.
Does anybody call you John Paul?
Some folks do, yeah. I mean, my parents would. My family calls me Johnny Paul. That's what they would call me. With, and then some friends that know, that know of me is that know, that are pretty close to me. They call me John Paul. A few people.
You come from a very large family. Whereabouts are
Hmm.
you in the family?
I'm the oldest of seven.
Wow.
Yeah. Hmm.
Now, you wouldn't
Yeah.
know any different, but what's it like growing up with six other siblings?
Um, well, it's you're never really bored. And there's always lots of activity going in the house. Um, there was never any leftovers on the meal table. um, you know, I have a brother who's a year younger than me. Um, my sister, unfortunately, my sister that comes next in line, my sister Kyla, she passed away last year, July
Oh, I'm
27th.
sorry to hear that.
Um, so that's kind of sad. Today is actually would have been her 52nd birthday.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so pretty heavy stuff. But and then I have another sister that's about a year younger than her, Shanda, and I have a brother that's about a year younger than her, a year and a half younger than her, Jerome, and I have a sister that's about a year and a half younger than him, Sarah, and I have a youngest brother, Jeremiah, but we call him Bobby.
So, I know your dad was a guitar player. You're obviously musically
Yeah.
inclined. Is the whole family musically inclined?
My sisters they didn't get any of the music stuff at all. My younger brother plays a little bit. My brother James is a year younger than me. He plays a little bit. He actually has built a couple of guitars from scratch that are amazing.
Wow.
Um, and then I have my brother, my next brother in line is Jerome. He plays. He could have really, if he wanted to, he could have done it professionally, but he raised a family and is doing that stuff. So and then my youngest brother Bobby, he's really good. He doesn't play out professionally or anything, but again, if he wanted to, he could. He he plays a lot of just solo acoustic stuff, singing and Bob Dylan, Neil Young, and he writes some songs and he's really good. He actually wrote a song from my sister Kyla that passed away, beautiful song, and we recorded it. I took him in the studio. He'd never been in the studio before, and he went in and just did a fantastic job. Played by himself and sang the song. And then I had Ann Harris. We sent the files to my friend Ann Harris, the violin player who's playing on a couple of the tracks of the record. Um, we sent the files to her, and she put this beautiful violin piece over it, and it's just an amazingly beautiful song. But yeah, he doesn't. He just plays for fun, plays for his daughter, and plays for the family, and has no desire to go play out. He's real shy. I'm shy too, but he's even more shy than me when it comes to that. And but he's good. He can sing really good and play good. And if he wanted to do it, he could do it. He could have done it.
I wonder, from a big brother's point of view, and you see a very talented young brother who can write, who can play, and who has no interest in doing it professionally. Can you relate to that?
Um, I mean, I guess I can, but I mean, for me, I knew that I wanted to be a musician and play music from the time I was probably 6 years old. That's what I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I was mesmerized by it when I would see my dad and his friends playing, and they'd have these get-togethers and stuff, and they'd all sit around playing music and telling stories, and I was always just fascinated with it, mesmerized by it, and I also associated those times with peaceful times in the household. They were having fun, they were laughing, and I associated those times with good times, and I always just loved sitting around and listening to them tell stories and play music, and so I was attracted to it from a very early age. So it is kind of hard for me to relate to having the talent and not wanting to do something with it. You know?
But you also said you were shy.
Yeah. I mean,
How does one overcome that?
I still haven't overcome it. I mean, I still get nervous before every gig. It can be a big festival or it can be a gig playing for 10 people. I still get nervous when I play, and sometimes I have a you know I wear a hat. I always wear a hat. That helps. And I'm behind. I have the guitar to kind of hide behind. Like every once in a while, somebody will invite me up on stage just to sing a song or something, and I always feel like I almost feel naked because with the guitar, it's like you've got this shield in front of you, and stuff. So
I
yeah,
understand the nervousness. I mean, because I've talked to a lot of people who get nervous before they play. I would imagine that it wouldn't feel right if you weren't nervous.
yeah.
But I wonder, how do you overcome that? Like, how at what point in the gig do you feel comfortable, or do you ever feel comfortable?
It, yeah, I do. It dissipates after a couple songs, especially if the sound on stage is good. Um, the sound out front is good, and once people start reacting and responding to it um, in a positive way, dancing or clapping after songs or after a solo, something like that, and you see them smiling and having a good time, that's when it subsides and kind of dissipates and goes, okay, they're digging it. They're accepting me and they're enjoying what I'm doing, and they're getting it. They're feeling it.
I wonder. So you thought at 6 this is what you wanted to do, but you didn't pick up the guitar till about 11, correct?
Mhm.
Tell me about how that came about.
Well, um, well, when I was 6 years old, my dad gave me this little penny flute, right? It was had six keys on it, and he showed me a major scale, do re mi fa sol la ti do, right? And he showed me a couple, little songs, and I could figure out things at 6 years old. I could figure out like TV commercials or Christmas songs or you know Silent Night, just these sort of things and stuff. So my dad recognized it when I was very young that I had a gift or talent for music. So I did that, and then when I was in when I was in school, and I think it was about the fifth grade, you could get in band in school. So I started playing trumpet. I played trumpet from fifth grade all the way to through till I graduated from high school. I played in the band. We'd go play at football games and things like that, and I loved it. I was never good at sports at all, but the music, I had an innate. It just came naturally to me. I didn't even have to really try that hard. Like I never really learned to read the notes. I couldn't take a piece of music that I'd never heard and play it. But once I heard the music and heard the melody, then I could play it. And make it sound legitimate, I guess, or something like that. You know.
Would
Um,
that mean that you have relative pitch or perfect pitch?
no, I don't think so. No, I can just. I mean, I can search and find a note. Oh, that's not the right note. Okay, that's the right note. I think for me, more reading the notes was more understanding the time of them and stuff. Like you know how to count a dotted quarter note and those sort of
Right.
things. Which later on I kind of figured out because I started teaching guitar for a while. I did that for about 6 or 7 years when I was teaching out of books, so which came with a CD. So it would you could hear what the lesson did, and then once I realized, okay, that's how that feels, a dotted quarter note. That's how you count that. It's coming on the upbeat. So once I kind of figured that out a little bit, but I've never been a proficient reader or anything like that. I've always pretty much done it by ear. But I started playing the guitar when I was 11. My dad always sit around and played guitar, right? And I wanted to be a when I was young. I thought I wanted to be a drummer. I thought the guitar was too hard. I was like, it's got all these strings on it, and it's just too hard. I wanted to be a drummer. I used to set up pots and pans and shit, and 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 make like I was playing drums. Um, but then when I was 11, my dad's brother, we were living in Arkansas at the time, and my dad's brother came up from Florida, and he was a bass player, and it's his younger brother, my uncle Mike, and he came and visited us, and he was playing in bands in Florida. And I thought that was just the coolest thing, you know. I'd hear my dad talk about, oh yeah, you know, your Uncle Mike, he's kicking ass down there in Florida. He's playing with these bands, and he came and visited us, and that's I think that visit is what really got me in wanting to play guitar. And after he left, I remember my dad started showing me some chords on guitar and a couple songs, and whatever he showed me, I could pick it up like immediately, you know. And my dad wasn't he didn't play professional or anything like that. He didn't play solos. He played a lot of like Neil Young, Bob Dylan, kind of like my youngest brother does. And he would sing and play harmonica with, you know, he had a harmonica with the rack and stuff. So he would do that. And so he would show me, you know, the stuff that he knew. And once he basically showed me all the stuff that he knew, the chords and things like that, and a few songs, I he had some friends that played and were playing around town in clubs and things like that. And one in particular, this guy Randy Watley, who I still keep in contact with, and I would go over, you know, to their place. He had kids too, so I would go over there and stay the night. Uh, and he he showed me a pentatonic scale. I was like, how, you know, I know how to play rhythm and I know how to play these songs now. And I was about probably 12 at the time. And he showed me a pentatonic scale. He goes, yeah, this is, you know, this is where you start. If you want to play lead, you know, this is where you start. So he showed it to me and he explained to me, okay, you know, this is how you find out what key you're in. If you're, you know, this is the root note. If you move it to here, you're in this key. If you move it to here, you're in that key. So that got me started on, you know, being able to improvise and play melodies and solos over the chords and things like that. And he had a band that was playing around town, so they would sometimes he would let me come and sit in with him and stuff. And I was like, you know, 12, 13 years old, and that was just to me it was the most awesome, amazing thing, you know. And around that same time, my mom was working as a cocktail waitress in a place in town, and she got to know the band, and she said, "Ah, my son plays guitar," you know. And they said, "Ah, well, bring him out, you know, let him sit in with us." And so I remember the first time that I got to do that, you know, and being up there and playing in front of people and you know hearing them clap and stuff, and just was it was the most amazing thing, you know, to me. I was mesmerized by it, and I just kept doing that and kept playing with as many people as I could and learning. If I found somebody that's good, I would latch onto them and absorb and learn as much as I possibly could from them. And this is before, you know, you had the YouTube and the internet and all this stuff. Now you can go on YouTube and type in, you know, how to play like so and so, and there's a ton of stuff pops up and shows you exactly how to play the stuff, you know. But this that wasn't like that before, you know. I used to, you know, listen to records, put the needle on there, or listen to tapes and rewind them and try to figure things out. But mostly, I learned from playing with other musicians. You know,
And musically, what were
um,
you playing?
well, when I first started out, I mean, like I said, my dad showed me a few songs, some Neil Young stuff, some uh, you know, "Sunshine of Your Love," "House of the Rising Sun," those all those typical songs that everybody learns when they first start playing. And and then like his buddy, my friend, you know, my dad's friend Randy Watley, that showed me other stuff. He would show me a couple of Rush songs, "Working Man," Van Halen, "Running with the Devil." And you know, I was into Kiss and Black Sabbath at the time. You know, Ozzy Osbourne and Allman Brothers, that sort of stuff. And so I was kind of dabbling around, learning that stuff. You know.
And then you heard Metallica.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when we moved to Florida, because I grew up in Arkansas, in the country, in the middle of nowhere. I mean, we lived on 100 acres of land with nothing around. And then we moved to Florida, which was quite the culture shock. I had just graduated to 10th grade. I was 16 years old, and we went from a school where there was in Arkansas where our whole class was 30 kids. Our graduating class in Arkansas, there were 30 kids. When I moved to Florida and I graduated, there was 500 kids. They had the graduation at an auditorium.
I can't imagine what that would have been like. I mean, at that age, to go from a very small rural area to a bigger city, and as you said, it was a culture shock. How did you adjust to that?
I've always been able to make friends pretty quickly. So I made friends. And just at first, I mean, I really missed my friends in Arkansas, and I really missed being there, and mostly I missed my friends, that I had there. And there was a point where I tried to actually, I was going to finish out the 12th grade, and I went up there on vacation with my aunt, and I stayed because I had just turned 18, so it's like, oh, I'm 18, I can do whatever. And I stayed, and I remember calling my mom the next day, and she's like, no, 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 this is a bad idea. You're not going to do this. And she immediately like gathered some money together, borrowed money from friends and whatever it was, and got me a plane ticket back home to Florida. Thank God she did. Um, but just I just made friends. I got I've always made friends a lot of times with musicians, and stuff. So I I had friends that were into music and stuff, and that's what I think helped me really adjust to it was my friends that I met through music and things like that. That was the common bond. Was like, we like this music, and that's when I discovered Metallica and stuff. And I was like 17, 16, 17 years old, and somebody gave me the tape, and Master of Puppets record, and I remember putting it on and just like, oh my God, I've never heard guitar sound like that. I've never heard anything that sounded this heavy and crazy, and I was very drawn to that. I said, this is just this cutting edge, groundbreaking music at the time.
Yeah. Now, is it easy for somebody like yourself who is quick to learn things to hear this and think, I can do this?
Well, that's the thing about the Metallica stuff was a lot of it was it's all riff orientated. It's riffs. It's not so much I mean, there's soloing on it and stuff, but it's it's riffs mostly played with a lot of power chords or single note things like that. So when I heard that, I said, "Wow, I can figure this shit out." And so I said, and I played along with that album and figured out the riffs and stuff. And I mean, I probably didn't figure them all out exactly as they were, but I would hear it and figure it out. And but also during that same time, my uncle Mike that I was telling you about, the bass player, he uh, he was living with us at the time, and he gave me his record collection, right? And one of the records was there was a couple of really good records, but one of them that I remember in particular was ZZ Top. He had a couple of ZZ Top. The Trey Zombies record, and Dujello, or I think that's how you pronounce it,
I thought it
Duello,
was DeGrello, I think.
Duello, yeah. So I I was at the same time I'm figuring out this Metallica stuff. I was also figuring that shit out too, and like nationwide and those songs like that, and I could hear it and figure it out, and because it's riffs and stuff, but it also was you know easier bluesy solos and stuff. So I was listening to that at the same time.
But I would presume that at that point, it wasn't like it didn't matter what kind of music it was. It wasn't
No,
about different styles, but it was about good music versus not good music.
exactly. It's exactly. I mean, there was stuff that I loved, and there was stuff that I didn't like. But if I heard something that I liked, I dug it. My parents they also had the Woodstock album, and this is when I was young. I mean, I were probably even when I first started playing guitar. They had the Woodstock album, and I remember listening to that, and I remember going through it, going, "Yeah, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool." And then when I remember stumbling across the Jimi Hendrix stuff and like, holy shit, fire. I was like, that's it. That moved me as a kid, when I heard that. All the other stuff was okay, it was cool, but I just remember I would always go back to that the Hendrix part of that record.
But also
Um,
around this time, you got a chance to meet a blues legend.
yeah.
So
And that
like at the age of 18, I believe.
yeah.
So tell me about
So
that.
that
You win a contest to actually get a guitar and also go
mhm.
see BB King.
Yeah, which was life changing. I, I was at this music store and I was telling the lady, oh, I've got a Fender Stratocaster, which was the second guitar I ever had, which I still have, of course. Um, and I had a Charvel, which was my metal guitar, everyone was playing then. And I remember telling the lady at the music store, yeah, I've got a Fender Strat, and I've got this Charvel, and gosh, one of these days I'm going to get a Gibson. She goes, oh, well, you need to register for this raffle. Today's the last day. They're giving away this, you know, Gibson SG and tickets to go see BB King. And
Did you know who BB King was at that point?
I mean, I heard the name, but I didn't know. I mean, I knew I'd heard his name, but I wasn't familiar with any. I'd never heard his
And
music.
did you know what blues was? I mean, yeah, if you're playing ZZ Top, then you kind of playing some kind of blues,
I
but
kind of knew what it was, but not really, not really. You know. But then, so I put my name in this raffle, and about a week later, I came home from school, and my mom was all excited. This radio station called, and you won tickets to go see BB King, and this $1,200 guitar. I'm like, wow, there's got to be some catch. There's no possible way. There must be a catch to this. I thought. So, I said, well, call the radio station. I called down to the radio station. Yeah, yeah, okay, just go to the music store, show them your ID, and they'll give you the guitar. Okay, so I called the music store. Yeah, this is JP Soars. I'm coming down, to get the guitar. Okay, just bring your ID. And I still couldn't believe it. There's got to be there's no way they're going to hand me this $1,200 guitar and two tickets to go to BB King. And I went down to the music store, showed the lady my ID. She walked in the back, grabbed the guitar out, brought the case, opened it up, showed it to me. Beautiful white SG with gold hardware, and handed me the two tickets to go see BB King. And I still couldn't believe it until I got home and I laid the guitar on my bed, opened the case, and was like, "Holy shit! I can't believe that this is mine." I mean, um, and then about 5 days later, my dad and I went to the concert. I remember it was on Wednesday night. It was on a Wednesday night, the Carefree Theater in West Palm Beach. And my dad and I went. We drove down there. We sat front row and center stage. The tickets were front row center stage. And I sit there and just looked up watching BB King, and it blew my mind, blew my dad's mind. We were just like, wow. And then after the show, we got escorted backstage and met him, and had him. He signed the guitar. That was whole part of the thing. And I just remember how humble he was, and how he spoke to me, and how he made me feel when he spoke to me. Like he just, I didn't feel like I was talking to a legend. The way he talked and the way he spoke. And I remember he's like, oh, this is an awfully pretty guitar. You sure you want me to put my signature on there and stuff? And he signed it, and I got pictures with him, and he told a little story about growing up on and working in the cotton fields, and how he would skip work and stay home and practice the guitar and play the guitar. And in hindsight, I look back at that now and I go, there's a reason he told me that little story like that. I felt like, when I look back on it now, you know and like, to follow your dreams, pursue your passion. But I just remember how humble he was, and how nice he was, and just the way he spoke to me. And we left that show, and we were driving home, and I remember my dad saying, that's the kind of music you need to learn to play, you know. And I knew after that experience that music is timeless music that cuts straight to the soul, that I could play for my grandma, I could play for my aunts, I could play for young people, anybody, that anybody can relate to that music. And that's where all popular music, as we know it pretty much, you know, popular American music or whatever, that's where it's coming from, the rock and roll. There would be no ZZ Top or Metallica or this if it wasn't for this stuff. And but I'm self-taught, so I had no idea where to begin to play blues. I mean, I knew basic, like, you know, my dad showed me, you know, da 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 very early on, so I knew the 1 4 5 progression, but I that's all I knew was just that basic da 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 da, and I knew how to
It's amazing that
solo.
like you got that, and having experienced that moment, that you got the sense of the blues, and also the fact that it does transcend to all age groups.
Yeah,
And you know, because you're still young, to kind of figure that out is huge.
yeah,
Although
and
you
not
did go on to play metal, so it wasn't like you went to
and
blues right away, right?
and I was doing that too, you know. At the same time, I was playing with these guys, my friends, and we played a bunch of Metallica songs and some Judas Priest songs and things like that. But I was also, you know, I was listening to that ZZ Top stuff, figuring that out, and I started trying to find blues jams and stuff like that because that's I wanted to learn it, and that's you know that's what folks tell me, go to these blues jams and stuff. Okay, so I started doing that, and I would just watch the guys and listen and look at these chords they were playing and stuff, and and that's kind of how it started. Like I said, I would if I found someone that was good that could play, I would latch onto them and absorb everything I could from them. You know, um, so I was doing everything. I was doing it all kind of simultaneously. You know, there was never a point when I said, okay, well, I'm going to stop listening to this kind of music and stop playing this kind of music so I can go play this kind of music. That never. There was never a pivotal point where that happened. It was just, you know, this is great music. This is great music. Also, I like it both, and so I was learning both at the same time. When I was playing in you know, one of the metal bands I played in, Divine Empire. This was later on in life. We would go on tour, and we'd be the opening band on a 5 band bill or something, and we'd be the second band, the first band, whatever. And we'd play our 45-minute set, and I would go look in the local rag magazine, the local paper magazine or something, and find out, you know, oh, there's a blues jam going right down the street. I'd jump in the cab, grab my guitar, and go down to a blues jam, you know, in whatever part of town we might be in. I remember, you know, there was one in Utah. We went to Salt Lake City, a few other places in Iowa. So I'm going to be on the road traveling with this metal band, play our set, and then go try to find a blues jam somewhere. And I'd go there, and you know, they didn't know me, but I would tell them, hey, yeah, no, I'll introduce myself, and yeah, I'm from Florida and I'm on tour, you know, just traveling through right now. And of course, I didn't tell them I'm on tour with this crazy fucking death metal band. And and so they, oh yeah, yeah, this, you know, come on, sit in. They'd immediately get me up because, oh, this guy's on tour, and shit. But and let me sit in. So I was doing all this stuff simultaneously, um, you know, writing and recording with these metal bands, but listening to Albert King on my headphones when we were traveling and trying to figure that stuff out and going to blues jams. And I come home from a tour with Divine Empire, and 2 nights later, I'd be playing a blues gig with a friend's band or something. You know,
Tell
so I
me,
was,
like, from somebody who plays in a metal band, obviously you're a very competent guitar player. You're probably playing a lot of fast riffs
mm-hmm.
versus somebody who's trying to learn the blues and listening to Albert King and BB King. Tell me what the difference is. I mean, I can imagine in my mind what the differences are, but as somebody who's experiencing both sides, who's playing both music, what is the huge difference to you, or is there a difference?
Uh, I think the difference for me is the feels of it, the way it feels, and the energy that's in there. The metal stuff was very almost mechanical, machine like, very precise, very structured. Um, no improvisation, worked out riffs. We're going to play this riff X amount of times, then we're going to go to this part X amount of times, then we're going to do a stop here, and then we're going to go back into this and do this X amount of times. So it's very structured, very worked out. And we practice a lot. We rehearse 3 or 4 nights a week playing in those bands. Um, the blues stuff was more free form, more improvisation. Um, um, could express many more different feelings in blues than with the metal. The metal is just like full on, always just kind of angry, pissed off, angst-ridden youth type of stuff. Where the blues, it might have elements of that in there, but it's also got elements of a bunch of other things.
And how difficult was it to get that emotion into your playing? Was that an easy thing to do? I mean, for somebody like yourself, where you said you could pick up things very quickly and imitate or just learn things quickly, was it easy to learn emotion on blues songs?
Well, to me, it kind of came naturally, um, because I would listen to that music and I loved it and I absorbed it and I internalized it and I would listen to it a lot. And so I knew what it's supposed to sound like, and I respected the music, the blues. I high and still do, and I'm still trying to learn it to this day. I mean, I still hear. I watched a video of BB King yesterday on someone had posted on Instagram, and it's an older one, probably from the I don't know mid '70s or something. And I'm just like, holy shit! It blew my mind again, once again. And I'm like, and I'm watching it, and I'm thinking to myself like, I don't know shit. I'm like, I got so far to go. Just like um, it still mesmerizes me, and there's still so much to learn. But as far as the emotion goes, I felt it in my soul, and I felt it when I first saw BB King. I felt connected to it. I don't know if it's growing up in rural Arkansas, with minimal things. I mean, my parents weren't weren't were we were pretty poor. We didn't have a lot. My you know my mom was usually taking care of kids or pregnant or and my dad worked was pretty much self-employed and stuff. So we grew up we grew up pretty meager means. We lived in a in a house with where we didn't have running water at points. We didn't have electricity sometimes. We used an outhouse and stuff. And so, not that that has anything to do with anything, but when I heard that music, I don't know, it just touched my soul. I felt a connection to it. Um, and so sometimes I try to tap into those times. I mean, and growing up that way.
So I'm curious. So you're obviously touring Europe and the States with your metal band. I don't know how well you're doing, but you're obviously having some success and playing and gigging and making money that way. At one point or another, you decide that you want to change the course of your musical direction. I know you've been playing the blues all along, but you decide that maybe I'm going to focus more on the blues. How does that decision come about?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, when I was out touring with those bands, it was fun. It was awesome to be out playing music, traveling around, going to these different cities and things like that. And I felt like, okay, this is what it feels like to be a real musician. I'm out playing these gigs, and I'm you know getting to play constantly. I would practice in the van, and I can just play and play and play. And that was awesome. But at the same time I was doing that, I always felt to myself like, okay, this is cool. When we would, like I said, we'd be on tour with 3 or 4 other bands. We'd play our 45-minute set, sometimes not even that, 30-minute set, and that was it. We were done for the night. I thought to myself when I was out there doing that, man, how cool, how much more I would enjoy being out here playing blues for an older crowd, more respectful crowd. Not to say that that crowd's not respectful, but just it's a whole different thing. Um, and to be playing, you know, two sets or, you know, be playing for a 90-minute set and playing the music. I mean, I love the metal and stuff, but at the time I was kind of, you know, outgrowing it, you know.
How old were you?
I was in my I was in my late 20s
Okay.
and early 30s when I was doing that. And I remember I came home from a European tour in 2005, and I was just like, I don't want to, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to, you know, I'm getting too old for this shit. I want to play, you know, I want to focus 100% on roots music and this kind of stuff. You know, I was also at the same time I got really heavily into gypsy jazz and Django Reinhardt, um, which I was studying that stuff as well. And I had a band. We were trying to, you know, do the, you know, we had the three guitars and a violin and an upright bass, and I was really studying that stuff. But it's all connected, you know, all that stuff. Even the metal is connected to that in some way, somehow. I came back from that tour in 2005, and I quit the metal band. I said I'm gonna focus on this, and I wasn't making any money playing the metal stuff at all. I'd go out on tour and I'd come home broke, essentially. You know, I might have $800 or something after being out for 3 weeks at it or a month. You know, so we weren't really making any money doing that stuff. And you know, but the blues stuff, I was like, well, I'm gigging and I can make money doing this. And so I quit that band in 2005, and I was also working in a music store at the time. I was teaching as well. So I was teaching, working in the music store, playing gigs, you know, as much as I could. I got played with anybody, you know. I'd do my own gigs where I'd front the band. I would do gigs where I was backing somebody up, and I would learn tons of stuff from them, from the bands I was backing up because I was learning the material that they wanted to play. So I learned a bunch of stuff. Terry Hank, I played with Terry Hank for a long time, still do. But my the drummer that I played with, Chris Pete, and we played with Terry for many years, and I learned a ton of stuff from Terry Hank. Um, he's just a plethora of musical information. He turned me on to lots of cool music and a lot of neat stuff that I would have never probably found out about if it wasn't for him.
I wonder
So
when you said you wanted to become a musician at a very very young age, I wouldn't expect you to know what that would have meant, and what being a professional musician, what that meant to you back then. But when you became a professional musician, did you was it what you thought it would be?
um, well, I can tell you this: I was a lot. Once I started playing music full time, like like I said, I was teaching music at the music store. I had about 25 students, and I was playing these gigs and stuff. Well, the music store closed down, right? And so I was like, okay, well, not gonna go get another job at another music store. So I'm gonna keep these 15 to 20 students I have and just play gigs. And that was the point where it was like, okay, now I'm fully immersed in music. I don't have to worry about going to some job that I don't care about, that I do not like doing, that I don't want to be there. I'm only there because I need the money. So once I was able to make that move from uh, not working a regular job, and I've worked all kind of different jobs throughout my life to try to do this stuff, um, and I was well into my I was into my 30s at that point. So once I was able to just do music full time, I was a lot happier. You know, I hated waking up and going to work and going to some job that I didn't like. I worked for Motorola for a few years. I got a degree in electronics, so I better have something to fall back on. So I took out a student loan, went to school for electronics, and kept deferring the loan and stuff. Right? I worked for Motorola, and I hated it. I hated getting up and you know I just dreaded getting up and going to the job. And I knew that's not what I was meant to be doing, and I didn't belong there.
I wonder. So you decide that you're going to be a full time musician. At this point, are you still mainly doing sideman gigs, or are you also thinking I need to establish myself as an artist myself and start
Yeah,
singing
yeah,
and writing songs?
yeah. I mean, I was singing and writing songs and stuff, and I was still playing with anybody I could if someone needed, And then I finally hooked up with Chris Pete, the drummer that I still play with. We've been playing together almost 20 years now, and once I did that, then we had a steady gig at this place called the Backroom Blues Bar. The guy gave me a weekly residency there. We would play Wednesday night. We would run the. They would have an open jam. We would run the open jam, and then Thursday night we would do our regular gig. And we did that for about 2 or 3 years, and that's when I was able to like really really hone the band and figure out my thing. And that's also where I started just doing a trio. The owner of the club was like, "Man, you don't need to bring in a keyboard player, another guitar player, and stuff. He told me, you're good enough to do this just on your own with just a three-piece band, bass player and drummer." And I took his advice, and that forced me to like get better, because now I had to cover all this terrain by myself, which forced me to become a better player and a better frontman and a better performer. And I learned a lot about being a frontman with Terry Hank, playing with Terry Hank. Um, so it's doing that, and then I went and competed in I went and played at the International Blues Challenge in 2007, backing up a friend of mine, David Shelley, who unfortunately passed away about 10 years ago. Um, but we went and competed. I'd never been to Memphis before, and we went there for the IBC. We made it into the finals, and that was just an amazing time. It's another one of them like kind of life changing things, going to Memphis and visiting the Stax Museum and seeing all these musicians and this whole thing. And we made it into the finals, and it was awesome. So the next year, I tried to go with my own band. So I'm going to go up there with my own band. And I had a keyboard player at the time. That was right before I went to being a trio. And we didn't make it into the finals, nothing like that. But a couple of things happened on that trip. I met Bruce Iglauer from Alligator Records, and he gave me his card when I sent him my CD. When I finished my CD, he critiqued it, and he dug it, But there was also things that he's like, yeah, work on this, work on that, and he gave me a contact for a festival up in Jacksonville. Hey, I think you'd be a good fit. You can use my name as a reference. So that, and also on that same trip, 2008 to Memphis, um, is when I got Cigar Boss guitar. Like I said, we didn't make it into the finals. We didn't win anything like that, but made contacts. And I got that Cigar Boss guitar I bought off this guy, John Lowe, up there, two-string Cigar Boss guitar, which was another cool thing that I added to the arsenal of what I do. Um, so the next year, 2009, I stripped the band down to a trio, and we went again. We said, let's go again. And this time I said, I'm not gonna I'm not I'm not gonna listen to anybody trying to tell me to play this way or play that way or play quiet, or they're looking for this, they're looking for that. No, no. I'm just gonna go up there and play what I feel, play what works down here in the clubs, what I get a response from, reaction from.
Do you know at this point who you are? Like, do you know musically who you are at this point?
Mm, Kinda, yeah. I mean, I still really don't, to be honest with you. I mean, and I listen to the new record and I'm like, what am I doing? Because I like so much different shit. I like
Oh yeah, that certainly comes across the way the things, different things you do on an album.
I like so many different kinds of music. And whatever comes out, it's gonna come out, and I'm gonna do that. So we go up there in 2009, and I mean, I kind of do. I mean, I've you know I know what's working, and I know what's getting a reaction out of people here. and it's stuff that I dig. And so I went up there in 2009, which is the emotion like, I don't care if we make it into the finals or we win. No, we're not going up there for that. We're going up there to get exposure, to meet people, to the experience of it, and just to have fun. Who knows who we're going to meet? Who knows what? We might meet a guy from a festival that wants to have us on the festival. And when I went up there with that attitude, uh, that we actually won that year, and I couldn't believe it. I was blown away. Once again, I was just like, holy shit! I can't believe that we won first place in this thing. And to me, music is not a competition. I never thought of it that way. But I saw bands that would go to that IBC, and I saw them that would win, and I'd see that they'd wind up on all these festivals and all this stuff, and it was kind of like it helped their career. This kind of opened doors, and I thought, well, if I can do that, I can get outside of Florida and play these festivals, and then if I can play these festivals, then I can parlay that into more stuff. And in 2009, we went up there with that attitude, and that's when we actually won.
And
And
became a national act and an international act.
exactly, yeah, we got on the festivals, and I also got the Albert King Award that year. So they gave me a Gibson uh, a Gibson guitar. I mean, not a SG, but a Les Paul, a white.
That's the second Gibson.
Exactly. And it was a white Les Paul with gold hardware. The first one was a white SG with gold hardware.
Wow.
So, and both of them were given to me in the month of February, right? Almost exactly 20 years later. And so when I got home from that trip, I did the same thing. I took that guitar, laid it on my bed, opened it up, and I was just like, I can't believe this. And then I took my other guitar, the one that I got from the BB King experience, and I put that on the bed along with the other guitar and opened it up. And then when I looked at the date that BB King signed it, I'm like, holy shit, this is almost exactly 20 years later from the time that I met BB King to now. And now I've got this, I just got the Albert King Award. And it was just really, it was surreal. It was surreal.
Do you believe in signs?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's crazy. Okay, so what does this do to your confidence? And that guy who still gets nervous in front of before the gig. What does this whole experience do for you?
Well, it kind of freaked me out, to be honest with you, because I was like, okay, you know, I was, now I've got this title of, you know, um, just won this International Blues Challenge thing, and this, BB King, I mean Albert King Award. I got the guitar and stuff, and I'm like, wow. Now when I play out, I go, people are really, really going to be expecting to see something, to be wowed, to really see something like. And it kind of freaked me out because I was like, man, did I just win this by luck, or am I really that good, or did I, like it was a lot of pressure, because I just thought to myself, there's going to be these, people out there with their arms folded like this, going, okay, let's see what this guy's, this is the International Blues Challenge, you know, let's see what this guy's got. So it kind of freaked me out a little bit, you
Okay,
know.
so how do you react to that? Do you like what happens with that it freaks you
Well,
out? Do you work harder and
absolutely,
get better?
absolutely, that's exactly what I did, and I said to myself, like, okay, if I can go play these festivals, uh, and my goal in my mind was like, okay, I go play these festivals, and if I can leave an audible, visual imprint in these people's minds in a positive way, I'm going to get hired back to do the festival again. And a lot of them we did. We played the thorough. That's how the Canal Bank Shuffle was one of those festivals that was part of the prize package, right? Along with the legendary Rhythm and Blues Cruise, right? So we played. We got invited back to play Thorough like 5 times. I think we're going back to do it again this year for the. It's like the sixth or seventh time we've been invited to come back there, and it all started from that. That's how I made the contact with Tim Sinnott. playing the blues cruise, I made a ton of contacts through that because I got to meet and play with a lot of my idols, musicians that I was like, wow, I'm like, I can't believe I'm on stage with Duke Robillard, you know, and I studied his video that he put out, and now I'm sitting here jamming with him, um, you know, playing with Curtis Legato, Elvin Bishop, Tab Benoit, all these people, and those all led into personal relationships with these folks and stuff. And I mean, I wound up putting the last record, Let Go of the Reins, I recorded with Tab Benoit and put it out on his label. And that all happened through meeting Tab on the blues cruise and jamming with him late at night after, you know, everything had settled down. Um, I met Jimmy Thackeray through through that whole experience of winding up on this Blues for a Cure thing that Sean Carney, who won the Blues Challenge in 2007, he put on this thing called Blues for a Cure. I got invited to do that, and that's where I met Jimmy Thackeray. Jimmy Thackeray invited me to go on the legendary Rhythm and Blues cruise with him the following year and play with him. And we became really good friends. Uh, one of our sets on that blues cruise was recorded by the sound guy, and Jimmy wound up putting out the Live as It Gets album, which I'm on. So all these things just like parlayed into one another, you know, and I've always kind of just taken small steps and you know and being very grateful and appreciative of it. And I never felt like, oh, I've arrived or I've got this or and I still don't. I mean, I still question myself all the time. I still go, I'm pulling the wool over these folks' eyes. Like, how am I? You know? So,
But but you're still building an audience, as they say, brick by brick, right?
exactly. And I mean, and that saying came from my drummer and I, uh, drummer Chris Pete, who's also one of my best friends. You know, sometimes we go play these gigs and like, you know, sometimes there's a great crowd. Sometimes you're playing for 10 people. And if you get two of those 10 people that are blown away and that love your stuff and that really connect to it, then they're going to go tell their friends and they're going to recommend you to some other place to play, something like that. And when we have those situations where, you know, only playing for 10 people, but we got these two fans that they just love us now. We always would say, brick by brick. That's how we're building it, you know, and that's how we've done it throughout the whole thing. I mean, I carry, you know, I usually have CDs with me in the van when I'm traveling around, or in my, you know, my Jeep, my other vehicle that I have, and I keep a few CDs in there with me. And you never know who you're going to stumble across. If I happen to see somebody and I start talking about music with them, or what kind of music do you like? Oh, I like this kind of stuff. Really? Yeah, I'm a musician. You know, this is what I do for a living. Check this out. You know, places I go to eat. I go to the same places all the time. I'll meet somebody that starts, you know, having a conversation and tell them I'm a musician, and I'll say, well, hey, check this CD out. I'll give them a CD, and next thing you know, you've gained another fan that way. If we're traveling in the airport, someone starts asking me about music or my cigar box guitar or something like that, hey, check this out, man. Here's my CD. Next thing you know, you see them at a festival somewhere. You know,
It's interesting. When you said you don't really know who you are, partly because of the fact that you play so many different types of music and you're so into so many different things. I mean, in a way, that is who you are,
yeah.
right?
I mean, I'm a musician. That's what you know. I mean, I know that I'm a musician, and that's what I was meant to do, and that's what I was put on the face of the earth to do, and that's my innate talent of anything else that I do. That's what's always come naturally to me, and that's what I've always been drawn to. So that I know for sure.
But is it difficult to go into record a new album like the one you just did, where you might have a tune where you're playing the banjo, another tune where you're playing acoustic guitar, you know, another one where you're just rocking out or you're playing with your cigar box guitar? Like, is it? Do you ever think, oh, I can't put that on because it really doesn't fit into the style, even though you have so many different styles?
Uh, I I kind of used to on the first maybe the first couple of records, I would kind of have that approach, especially the very first record that I did. Um, I remember I've been recording with the same guy for since 1994, with the exception of the record I did with Tab Benoit. We recorded at his studio. All the other stuff I've done, I've recorded with this guy Jeremy Stoska, who I've been working with since '94, who also recorded the metal bands, all the metal stuff that I played in. Right,
Right.
we were recording that very first record. I remember I'd be laying down the solos or something. And no, 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 man, that's a little too that's a little too much. Tone it back a little bit. Because I was trying to you know, I was trying to get acceptance and fit in, and I didn't want that. I didn't want that sound or that energy to creep into it, so I wouldn't do it. But then slowly but surely, I started letting that stuff creep in. Um, I mean, the song "Gypsy Woman" that I do, which I still do it, slow blues. It's in a minor key. That tune is evolved into where I can throw the energy of the metal stuff in there. I can throw some gypsy jazz stuff in there. And when I would do that, I would people would react to it in a positive way. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to play what I feel in my heart, because if I feel it, if I'm truly feeling it in my heart and I'm digging it, then chances are somebody else is going to feel it as well. They're gonna feel that too. If I'm up here trying to appease so and so, trying to do something that doesn't really fit, that doesn't really feel so well, but it doesn't happen. But if I just, as long as I'm feeling it in my heart, then someone else is going to feel
Then tell me about a little bit about the new album, Brick by Brick.
it. Well, a lot of it was written during the pandemic. A lot of those songs came about during the pandemic. For instance, the second song on there, Jezebel. Um, that whole song came about. It's a funny little story behind that. We didn't have any gigs for the first couple of months, first 3 months of that shutdown. I wasn't playing out. So we started doing these live streams, which everybody was kind of doing, where I'd set up my iPhone in my living room here and play along. And I what I did was I bought a little drum set. I got a kick drum and I got a snare, which I turned sideways and made a little mount for it. And I would I would play drums with my feet so I could keep a beat going, right? So, and then I would play along. Well, I did a couple of live streams like that by myself. Then I invited my friend Jake, Rockin' Jake, harmonica player, to come and do it with me, which is really cool. So we would every Sunday we would do this we called it the So Flow Boogie Duo, right? And so South Florida Boogie Duo, right? So we would do these live streams every Sunday, right? So uh, one day we're doing one, and he breaks out this harmonica that he's like, yeah, check this out. I got this from Lee Oscar, and it's tuned to like this minor harmonic key, harmonic minor key, instead of like a normal harp, which kind of sounds very kind of gypsy esque. It's got this gypsy sound to it, minor sounding gypsy sound, right? And it was in C sharp, which is kind of an odd key, right? Um, and I was, man, that's cool as shit. I go, we gotta utilize that, but we didn't have any songs that were in C sharp minor, So I said, I'll just write something. I'll just come up with something. I'll just write something in C sharp minor, right? So I came up with that's what inspired that song Jezebel. And I came up with the music for it. I had one line written down that a friend had inspired, some stuff that he went through. So about a couple months prior to writing the song, I wrote this one verse down. My mama knew she was a Jezebel. She told me right from the start, and that's all I had. So that's what I used for the first verse. And I'm like, okay, so I got the verse, I got the music, I got the whole thing mapped out, but I don't have all the lyrics finished yet. So, finished the music in about a day. I had the whole progression and everything worked out. So that night, I went and laid down to go to bed. I usually fall asleep on the couch watching TV. It's about 4 in the morning, and I turn on the TV, and the Twilight Zone is starting. The old ones, right? It's Twilight Zone episode starting. So it's just starting out, and I'm laying down and watching it, and then kind of almost nodding out, and I hear this lady telling her daughter in the episode, "Hey, now Jezebel, don't you go, you know, don't you go do this, Jezebel? You got to do that. I go, whoa, holy shit! So I set up, took in the whole episode, and in this episode of Twilight Zone episode, this young girl Jezebel, she's trying to get her boyfriend, this guy, to only like her. So she goes and visits this witch in town and tells the witch, "Hey, I hear you can, you can do things and make things happen and stuff, and you know, put a spell on this guy so he only likes me and shit." So, and that's where I got the rest of the lyrics for that tune. But it all came about from the live streams with Jake, my friend Rockin' Jake, and his harmonica that was tuned to C sharp minor. That if he wouldn't have broke out that harmonica, that tune never would have happened. So a lot of it's written during the pandemic. The song, the last track on there, "Down Near the Water," that was written during the pandemic. I didn't have any gigs, like I said, so I'm used to playing every weekend. I hadn't had a weekend off in 20 some odd years or more, and so now all of a sudden I've got nothing to do on Friday nights. You can't go out anywhere because everything's shut down. So I would go fishing in the evenings, right? And that's when all this stuff was happening on the news. We had a lot of things going on here, and the news was kind of freaking people out, and almost making people feel like everybody hates each other and this sort of shit. And so I would go down there and go fishing, and I'd meet people from all over the place, right? And everyone was just cool. Everyone was nice. "Hey, can I borrow some shrimp?" But I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, sure. Hey, let me borrow your knife so I can." Yeah, yeah. Everyone was just totally cool, right? So that's where I came up with the lyrics for that. "Down near the water, down near the water's a place for me. I like the folks that I meet. They're always nice to me. Turn off the TV and the radio. I ain't gonna listen to this crap no more. All these people trying to worry me." So that's where that song came about. It was from those things.
It's a great album. I mean, I love that song "In the Moment."
Thank
It's a
you,
beautiful piece of music.
thank you. That's a whole nother thing that you when I tell you how that was recorded, you won't believe it. I was just messing around. I didn't write that. I didn't like. There was no preconceived anything for that. I was just playing around. I had started dating this Brazilian girl, and Denise, and she got me into bossa nova music, Brazilian stuff. I'm loving it. It's freaking awesome. And so I bought a nylon string guitar and I started messing around with some of that stuff. So, you know, I was just playing a lot of nylon guitar with my fingers and stuff and just really digging it. Well, I was at her house one day and I was just messing around, improvising that piece, just jamming. I wasn't even just playing, just messing around, whatever was coming out. Well, she recorded it on her iPhone, unbeknownst to me. And about 3 months later, she sent it to me, and I was listening. And first, I didn't even recognize it was me. I was like, "Oh, this sounds pretty cool." And then I read, "Wait a second, that's me playing." And so I thought to myself, you know what? This has a vibe and certain something that captured it in the moment. That's why I call that "In the Moment." Um, so I put it on the record. It was what you hear was recorded on a voice memo on an iPhone.
Wow.
Yeah, and I took it to my engineer, Jeremy, and and he put a little EQ and a little reverb on it, and that's what you hear.
Okay, so you didn't even remember the piece.
Mhm.
You play it and you go, okay, that's good. Can you replicate that easily?
No, I was just gonna say if I had to redo that piece, it would take me forever to sit down and figure out exactly what I did because I was just playing whatever was coming to me. It
So
was
we're
just,
not going to hear this live.
I mean, you might hear variations of it, but playing it exactly like that, no, because it was the moment I was in. It was what I was feeling, and just I was playing for her. I was playing for her. My heart was full of and just and that's what happened. And I was almost reluctant to put it on there. I was going to put it at the end of the record as a hidden track almost,
Right.
and then um, uh, this friend of mine, this guy Brett Steele, he manages Damon Fowler and Jason Ritchie, and a few other folks, Reverend Peyton. Um, he was helping me out, when I finished the record and stuff. I gave it to him to shop around to help me maybe get a deal or something. And I had a whole totally different sequence of the songs, right? And he's like, let me, I got an idea for the sequencing of the songs, and what you hear on the record was what it was his sequencing,
Nice.
you know. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, maybe I'll let someone, a different set of ears sequence the songs. And it was his idea to put that one in the middle, and I was almost reluctant to do that. And then I sent it to another friend of mine, this guy Mike Kappas, who started the Rosebud Agency. He's the one that got me the deal with Little Village. He's the one that introduced me to Jim Pugh and Little Village people. And he was like, "No, no, I think that's great having it in the middle because it breaks up the record. It's almost like you got these two bookends, and that's in the middle, and it's like it's a nice way to break it up." And it's okay. And
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece. Do you
thank
have
you.
a philosophy in what you do? Do you have a philosophy in the type of songs you write or the message that you want to convey?
Uh, I don't think I necessarily have a philosophy. No, I just, I mean, I, I, I don't want to write any political stuff. I don't want to get into that because I think that's people's personal, you know, shit. Who you're voting for, who you're supporting, that's your own thing. I don't judge my relationships with people on, you know, their political beliefs, so to speak. Because I got friends across the board that would come help me if I'm broke down on the side of the road, no matter what side of the fence they're on. So I don't put any of that stuff in there. I just try to write about things that I that kind of feel close to my heart, I guess, or something. Maybe. I've been in some crazy relationships, and so that always creeps in there. I get inspired by observing other people in their situations too sometimes. So I don't necessarily have any straight philosophy on it. I like to, you know, not write too serious stuff, but I try to put a little bit of tongue-in-cheek comedy, not comedy, but just funny little stuff in there.
Well, it's a great album, and I've been enjoying listening to it. Um, I need to wrap this up, but let me ask you one final question. When you look back from that 6 year old kid who said, "I want to do this," to the guy who did the metal albums and toured around and decided to redefine himself, how do you look back on this journey, this amazing musical journey of yours?
Well, I look back on where I come from, where I grew up, you know, in very meager ways, in a little tiny town in Cedarville, Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas, in the Ozarks. And my mom had me when she was 17 years old. My dad was 18, 19 years old. My parents were hippies. We grew up very meagerly with nothing. I was not popular in school or anything like that. We lived on, like I said, the middle of nowhere on 100 acres of land, um, with an outhouse and no running water many times. I got picked on a lot when I was a kid too because I used to have long hair and I lived, around a bunch of country folks. So and I used to get picked on a lot. But I look at where I come, where I came from that time, you know, um, and the places that I've got to visit, the places that the music has brought me to. I mean, I've been to South America, I've been to Brazil, I've been to Cali, Colombia, I've been to Venezuela, I've been all over Canada, I've been almost every major city in the United States. I've went to Europe, almost every major city in Europe. I've been to Norway. I've been to Svalbard, which is like, I don't know if you're familiar with where that's at. It's the most northernly inhabited place. It's this tiny little island. It's owned by Norway, I believe. Yeah, and it's this tiny little island where they have the world seed bank there in case.
Oh, right, right, right. Yeah, yeah.
And it's covered in snow and ice. There's polar bears there, and most of the people that live there are people that are scientists and things like that work there. And I mean, I look at the map. I have this map right above my computer here, a map of the world, and I put pins in places I've been, and I look at it, and I just like I can't believe that the music is, no matter what the genre is, that the music that I've got to play my guitar there, I've got to play my guitar there, this place, that place, and sing here and sing there, and coming from this little tiny place, growing up that way and getting to visit all these amazing places and meet all these wonderful people and different experiences, different cultures and things like that. It's amazing to me. I mean, it really is. I look back on that and I'm just like, wow, I can't even believe that 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 the music has brought me there. Mm.
And the fact that you seem to win like Gibson guitars every 20 years.
Yeah, yeah. And that's awesome too. I mean, I remember the first guitar I got, like I had this beat up motorcycle that I sold for $50. And my dad and I went down to a pawn shop and I bought this guitar for $30 and an amp for $20. And I thought I had died and gone to heaven, right? And, I mean, if I was in school and I wanted to borrow, get 25 cents from my dad to go get a soda at the Coke machine like all the other kids were doing, he couldn't afford it. I mean, I couldn't, and and now I go now. I mean, I got a closet full of guitars. I got 30 freaking guitars in there. I got, I mean, the Les Paul that I got from the IBC when the Albert King Award thing, that guitar is a custom guitar. It's got the Blues Foundation logo on it. That guitar is probably worth, I don't know, 8, 10 grand or something like that, and I've got this guitar that's signed by BB King and to go from, those meager things to that stuff and I mean, I live fairly comfortably now. I'm not rich by any means whatsoever, but I live very meagerly. I don't drive brand new cars and none of that stuff. I try to save my money and try to, you know, live meagerly, simply, But
With your 30 guitars.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And what's funny is the main guitar that I play now is a guitar that I found at a club in Fort Gaines, Georgia, when we were at the end of a tour. And this guitar was hanging on the wall as decoration. It's a 1960s silver tone, right?
Wow.
And I traded the guy 25 CDs for it, and that's my main guitar that I play right now. That's the guitar you see on the cover of the record. Is that? And I traded the guy 25 CDs for it. And then come to find out it's the flagship model of silver tones, and they go for like $2,500 on eBay. I sent him a cigar box guitar because I make them and sell them.
Hmm.
Dad and I make them, and so I sent him a cigar box guitar to put in place of that silver tone. That thing had been sitting there for 10 years, had dust all over it, and crazy.
Well, JP, it's an amazing journey that you've taken, and thanks for sharing that with us.
Thank you, Macro, and thank you for the interview. This is a great one, man.
I really appreciate getting to know you a little bit, and I hope to see you perform live sometime.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Get it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.